So we have our new president and one of our new vice presidents, first female vice president. So I'm not going to waste anyone's time. We've got only about 15 minutes. I apologize. So I'm going to hand over to Seb to introduce.
Jackie, thank you. I'm just really delighted to be joined by the first female vice president the IAAF has ever had. Jimena is from the ranks of former athletes, which is always a helpful optic to have when you're driving a sport forward. And I really genuinely think this is quite a historic moment. So I really don't have anything other than that to say at this moment. So Jimena, you're incredibly welcome and congratulations for your achievement this morning.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored for this new position. It's a great moment for me and for my country. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Seb, because I'm here because of you, because of the changes you've done to the Constitution. I really think that we, the women, are having now more opportunities than the ones we used to have before, and that's been really helpful. Now we have 8 women in council, and that's a big numbers we weren't used to have before. So I'm very, very happy about that, because now I have the opportunity to represent them, and I just hope I can do a good job representing them. I also would like to thank all the people that voted for me, all the member federations that trusted me, and I just hope I can be all they are expecting me to be.
Okay, so a quick fire round of questions. Hands up. Mark, tell us who you are, where you're from. I might know, but some people might not.
Mon nom est Marc Ventouillac, je travaille au journal L'Équipe, and I will ask my question in French, but I can translate it very quickly in English too. Ma question d'abord en français, c'est est-ce que vous pouvez nous donner quelques détails sur la suspension d'Al-Kamali? Could you give us more details about Al-Kamali?
Actually, I did understand.
I know that.
Yes, I was, like most of my council this morning, we were informed shortly before Congress began that a provisional suspension had been issued. I have no further information than that. It was clearly something the Athletic Integrity Unit was looking at, and the Election Oversight Panel were looking at over the course of, I don't know, maybe the night before. I really genuinely don't know. So like the rest of my council, I will understand a little bit more about it, possibly over the course of the day, but I'm guessing that that's the necessary division now of responsibility between the IAAF and its Independent Integrity Unit, and I will leave that to them. This is clearly a process.
Field play, okay. Next question, it's Duncan, and then we'll come down.
Duncan Mackay, Inside the Games. Seb, your first 4-year term has been dominated by Russia. What would you hope your second 4-year term will be remembered for?
Not to be dominated by Russia. Look, it's been a tough 4 years. There's no point in being naive or coy about that. The first 2 years of that were, the reforms. The second 2 years of that were really making sure that they were implemented, and I'm really pleased to have got here pretty much having implemented everything we said we would do, and that's helpful. And I want the next 4 years to be the fun bit, really. I mean, we have to grow the sport. We know that we have to reach out beyond the beltway of athletics fans. We need to form partnerships at pretty much every level. We have to place the sport also as a service provider, if you like, for government agendas around getting people more active, people more physically engaged. The work that we're doing around Diamond League, the formats for one day, the coordinated calendar, the creation of a continental tour that will sit below the Diamond League and also allow us to genuinely beef up the one-day circuit at that secondary tier. All those things are actually what I sort of signed up for 4 years ago. We had to take a detour. We're much safer and secure now than we've ever been. But I'm not sort of kidding myself. The reforms are in place. They have been implemented. But we do need the sport also, which it has in large part. But, we do need that cultural shift as well. So there's a lot of work to be done over the next 4 years. But I hope in 4 years' time, when we're sitting here, we're looking back at the same level of delivery that we've had in the first 4 years, but actually really focused on the field of play.
Okay, yep. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go over there, Frank, and come back. Yes, Matt, Rob, front row.
Seb, there's been some concern expressed today about the marathon on Saturday night and the walks because of the intense humidity. I wonder if you could tell us, are they in jeopardy? And if they're not in jeopardy, if you still think they're going to go ahead, have you got concerns as a former distance runner yourself that it's going to be pretty harsh out there for the athletes?
Well, a former middle distance runner, I don't claim to have ever really done those. Okay, yeah, I did. No, look, it's a good question, and we have to be mindful all the time of the welfare of the athletes. We have a medical team that will monitor those conditions all the time. We've been monitoring it, over the course of the period that we've been here. It does, Matt, it has given us an opportunity, actually, to undertake a lot of work around heat management. And yes, we do recognise that the road events are the events that we need to watch carefully. I mean, simple things like just making sure there's more medical supervision out there and there's more water available. The stadium itself is fine. I mean, you have air conditioning of a particularly high quality. Your indoor warm-up areas are air conditioned. The core rooms are air conditioned. Even the outdoor track, if athletes want to use that for outdoor warm-up, we've got cooling mechanisms there. So our medical teams, we are, well, obviously we're in touch with all the time. They're part of our team here, and I will defer those judgments to them. But they are also mindful of the ongoing issue always about welfare of athletes. No plan at all.
Rob?
Hi, Rob Harris from Associated Press. Why you said you hope the next 4 years isn't dominated by Russia, would it be a good sign if it was dominated by another country like Kenya, because it would mean you were addressing the issue or getting a chance to clean up another country?
No, it's a bit like being asked whether you like the meat and you say yes, and then somebody says, well, what was wrong with the potatoes? Look, we have a non-negotiable position on this, and anybody that's known me over the years has known that I'm unreconstructed on this subject. We set out a criteria. It has to be met. It really does have to be met in full, and there has to be a real understanding that as and when a federation, if they are suspended, comes back into the international fold, that it's not just about their athletes, and this is what we have to remember. It is actually fundamentally about the confidence that clean athletes have that they're not going to spend half their young lives traipsing across moorland and lifting weights and doing all the things that turn them into the athletes that get there, for it to be ripped asunder because we don't have confidence in the testing systems in those countries. So we've come a long way on this. We have the watch list, and the watch list is now in large part predicated on the risk attached to countries that do have a lot of athletes competing at the very highest level. So, if you think about it, the AIU has now been up and running for 2 years. I think it's had some notable successes. I think the landscape, I'm not saying that we are in the Elysian fields here, but the landscape has dramatically altered. If you look at the range of medals and the range of countries that are now winning those medals, there's the potential for 40 countries in these World Championships, and we're only one of two truly global sports. There aren't that many sports that can point to that. But that is also in large part because the testing systems are better and we're able to broaden the number of countries, the number of athletes that traditionally wouldn't have had a look in on this. And I think that we're moving in the right direction, but it's going to take time.
And given what we now know about the LIMS database, and you'll have closely followed the role of UCAD in helping to clean up RUSADA, how regrettable do you think it would be if UCAD had been duped by the Russians, given how much weight has been put on the UCAD role in helping to rehabilitate Russia?
I don't want to get into that element because if you look at the reality here, we have 30 athletes with ANA status. Had RUSAF been reinstated, we'd have probably been back to the 80 or 100 that was the norm for a World Championships. We, to the best of our ability, are confident that those 30 athletes here, because they've been through the AIU system, they've been through the Doping Review Board, which we set up to individually look at these cases, we're really satisfied that that is a safe and secure system. And, if you remember, the philosophy for me was really clear. I didn't come into this sport to stop athletes from competing. I've always wanted to try and find a navigable route through. We separated the tainted athlete, or the clean athlete, from the tainted system. And that, again, in large part has worked. But this now has to be under review. We will obviously wait for the 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's 2 or 3 weeks that WADA have given RUSADA to answer some pretty specific questions. Rune Andersson, in his report this morning to Congress and to Council just a couple of days ago, highlighted some serious areas of concern that we still have left within that criteria. But clearly, the biggest chunk of that now is the proper analysis, not just handing it over, but the proper detailed analysis of what is on that database.
Okay.
Franco Fava from Corriere dello Sport, Italy. Seb, looking back to your first mandate, do you have any regrets, if you have any, of course, or which biggest regret do you have? Which was, according to your first 4 years as a president, your biggest goal you were able to achieve, and which goal you really wish to achieve for the next 4 years mandate? Thanks.
I'm not sure I would couch it as regret, but look, I can't have it both ways. I genuinely am very pleased and proud about the way the sport has come together, the changes that we made, 200 changes, the presence of the Athletic Integrity Unit. No sport has a unit that is remotely in this same space, and it's not just about anti-doping. Big as that is in their remit, it's about corruption, it's about malpractice, and that in itself is important. So in hailing those achievements, I also have to recognize that, yes, it has meant that we have had to detour from being able to really focus as hard as I would have liked in the early years onto those issues that you and I have often discussed around the field of play. We are now in a position to really genuinely to be able to do that. But I also think had we in the first few months or even the first year of that journey been talking about innovation and mixed relays, you guys would have gone, hang on a minute, how can you even be talking about that while you've made no attempt at all to shore up the foundations of the house? So we've done that. And that's why I say, look, I wish we had been able to do that earlier. And I wish we'd been able to bring some of that, the calendar, the transfer of allegiance, the approach that we're going to take around the one-day meetings, Diamond League, all the things that we've talked about, and looking at the role of managers and agents in this as well. I want to really be sure that we're not just focusing on one small part of that ecosystem. All that is to come. It would have been nice to have addressed some of the competitive elements of that slightly earlier, but now we have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, Sean, and then we'll head back.
Alan.
Sean Ingle, Guardian. So just to follow on Matt's point about a marathon, can I just check one thing? Will there be extra measures put in place? Because the temperatures I see are 32 degrees and 75% humidity. So that's the first thing. And second thing, I was speaking to a former international athlete who predicted there might be under 10 finishers in the women's race because it was so. And he described it as it could end up being a bit like a farce, which would be a shame as it's such a great event and sport and so on. Do you have any worries that if we are reduced to a handful of finishers because of the conditions, it could be a farce?
Sean, I really don't want to speculate on that, but look, of course I want as many people to finish in good shape as possible. Our medical teams are going to be very alert to that. And yeah, heat is actually, if I'm being tough here, heat is not the big issue, clearly humidity. Anybody that's run or competed knows that actually you can deal with heat, but humidity is really a challenge. So we will watch all those metrics. We do have extra precautions. We do have extra stuff out on the course, more medical support, more water. But yes, it is going to be tough. It is going to be tough.
Alan, can you put your hand up so I know who? Thanks.
Hey, Manna. I'm Alan Abrahamson from Three Wire Sports in California. You got 85 votes. You won pretty convincingly. Why do you think that is? And then, Seb, I have a question for you. In a race where you got all 203, to get unanimous acclamation, usually somebody disagrees. Why do you think you got everybody in the world to agree with you? 203 votes.
Well, I think that me winning was because it was a very big teamwork. I really got support from my area, from South America. I had some very good people working for me. I also believe that I had a trip to Asia. I went to meet them over there, and I believe we made a really good link. I got there, I talked to them, I was telling them that I was going to be there for them, and I think that me coming from a South American country, I can relate very good to some other countries that are smaller in track and field, that we're not that big and we don't have that many people and we're not that good. So I think that also helped me a little bit because I can relate to them very well. So I just hope that now I can do the job and I can just represent them as well as I wish to. But I think that was it. It was a very good teamwork, some very good people working for me and doing the job behind the scenes.
Can I just add something here? It's probably not a page turner, but we did create a gender leadership task force. And we created it because I fundamentally believe that the sport was out of kilter. We have 50-50 on the field of play, and yet, women engaged in sport, in our sport at the highest level, was thin on the ground. So we created the roadmap through to 2027, where we will have a 50% balance in all our governance structures. But I did watch at first hand, because I wasn't an absent landlord on the Gender Leadership Task Force. Stephanie Hightower chaired that for us, and it was about creating pathways and programs. And I have to say I was incredibly impressed by the contribution that Jimena made to that, and that's why I have little or no doubt at all that her incisive views on our executive board will be hugely helpful. And I think also it's important that our sport always looks like the world that we live in, and having got more women onto the council today than we were even mandated to do, I think is a hugely important step forward. Alan, I have no sensible answer to your question, other than the fact I'm rather hoping it wasn't that nobody really wanted the job after the previous 4 years. But look, I'm very flattered. I'm very, very grateful for that support, and I think that the opportunity we now have to continue in the same vein is really important. But I will say, I've got to present the council report to the Congress this afternoon, so I'll think of something a bit more sensible to say when I get to that.
Got one last quick. I'm really sorry. because you've got to go and present.
Hi, Geraint from Sky. Sorry. Hi there, Geraint from Sky. Can I just ask, you said in an earlier answer, you hope your next term is not dominated by Russia. How much are you hoping it's maybe not going to be dominated by the discussion over intersex, Casta Semenya? I know you've been very clear in where you stand, and we know where Semenya, for example, is very clear, but how are you hoping that maybe this can be resolved? You said that you hope at one point there can be a pathway for her to return to competition. How do you think that could happen? How do you think this could be resolved, maybe with Casta Semenya, but also the wider issue as well?
Well, first of all, I don't actually genuinely believe that one or even two issues are ever big enough to overshadow the progress a sport makes. I accept that they are of interest, both in and outside the sport, but we shouldn't ever take our eye off the ball. These are issues that will come from time to time. We need to deal with them. You said to find a pathway for for athletes with that condition. We actually feel we have. The regulations that we've tabled, not my words, but the words of the Court of Arbitration were realistic and proportionate, necessary. So look, the broader issue is clearly a societal one as well. The responsibility I had as president of the federation and my council took seriously was, we have to protect that so-called level playing field. It is really, really important. And we feel we've done that. And look, I've always tried to find a navigable route through. If it's been about keeping Russian athletes in competition, I think we found a sensible pathway. It's never been about just saying, the computer says no. We've always tried to find a sensible route through. And I think on DSD, we do have that. And yes, the issue of transgender, more broadly, is going to be a dominating issue, not just for athletics, but for all sports. I am, again, and I will say this, the world does divide into two groups, I guess, in sport. There are those that are prepared not to look the other way and to tackle those issues, whether there is short-term, difficulty in doing so. And there are those that sort of wait for, sports like us to do what we have to do and then to follow. And I just don't ever want to be in that latter category. I think you do have to make decisions, whether they're tough or not.
Okay, I'm really sorry. There are plenty of other opportunities over the next couple of days, but he's first up on the agenda and they're going in now.